Hi guys, it's Lauren and welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I am going to be telling you guys the case of Margaret Brown. So without further ado, let's get into the video. February 21st, 1928, Anal Campbell was driving home in the early hours of the morning after a night out in Morristown, New Jersey. He was with his wife and his neighbor, James Murdoch. Morristown was a nice and quiet community. However, they saw something burning in the distance on Morrisville-Bernardsville Highway. And now thought it might be a roadside stand, something that vendors would keep up overnight on the side of the road. The flames were large, so they decided to stop and see if they can help put it out. It was next to a gas station and they didn't want to risk the chance that the fire could spread. It was in fact behind one of the road stands that we were just talking about. It seemed to be the ground that had caught on fire, which was weird because there was just a fresh covering of snow recently. Anal and James got out of the car and realized that there was a person in this fire. They attempted to put the fire out, but unfortunately nothing worked. So their last resort was to just take a bunch of snow and put it all over the fire and all over the body. They also realized they could smell gasoline, so they also came to the conclusion that the body was soaked in it. Suddenly, the body started moving and struggling to breathe. Chief Police Kavanaugh was alerted about the fire by passing witnesses. And now James and Kavanaugh brought the person back to the police car and put them in the back seat. And now followed the police car while Jim sat in the back seat with this injured person. This is when they realized that this person was actually a woman. The hospital wasn't too far away, but she actually burst back into flames, covering her entire body and her clothes. They pulled over, brought her back out of the car, continued to put snow on her to put her out, but she unfortunately did not seem to be breathing anymore. When they got to the hospital, the staff had told them that they tried everything, but unfortunately they had to pronounce her dead at 3 a.m. Chief Charles Kavanaugh and County Prosecutor Francis L. Bergen were in charge of the murder investigation. The body was handed over to Coroner R.D. Totten. Before they officially considered this a murder investigation, they wanted to try to decide if this was self-inflicted. There was no evidence to show that she was injured before the fire took place. She also had on a 24-karat watch, and her clothes were not cheap either. She had on a sealskin coat that looked to be custom ordered. They also realized that it didn't look like she had tried to put herself out or even help herself in any way. Her right arm was severely charred, along with her legs and the right side of her torso. An autopsy was ordered so they could find out if she had any drugs in her system. They let the local news know the information that they had in hopes to identify this individual. They also visited Thomas Leigh from Buffalo, New York, who was the one who made the sealskin coat that she was wearing. However, he was not much help. He did have an organized list of all the clients from the area, and he even gave police officers the names of people from New Jersey to see if he could help. The gas station that was near the crime scene was closed at the time, so there was no gas able to be pumped that would have helped with this crime. No lighters, matches, or anything of that sort was found near the crime scene, but they did find tire tracks leading up to the body, and then they finally got their first big tip. Mary Brown, living in Fort Lee, New Jersey, was concerned about her Aunt Margaret Brown. She was supposed to be going on a trip, but made no contact with her family after going to lunch with her sister-in-law. A woman that Margaret had worked for called and asked if they had heard from her. When Mary told her no, she proceeded to tell her about the body that was found and talked about in the paper. And what worried Mary most, other than the fact that her aunt might be dead, is that she knew Margaret was carrying around a lot of money. She had supposedly just withdrawn $9,000 from her bank account, and in 1928, that was the equivalent of over $150,000. Mary called the police and talked to Detective Fred Roth. They went over identifying marks on the body, and one of them was a surgery scar, and sure enough, they matched. They went through the victim's clothing and each item was confirmed, so they eventually had Mary come in to make an official identification. Margaret was a governess who worked for the Gillespie family. She had worked for them for 9 months. The Gillespies were wealthy and lived on Park Avenue in New York. Margaret liked going to Central Park in her free time, and it's also believed that she had actually met someone and planned to go away with them soon. According to what she told the family, she had planned to go to California. However, detectives also heard that she was planning on going to Florida, not California. The day prior, Margaret had actually left her job to pursue a life of her own, but this was also done on good terms. When she left her employment, she took a trunk with her, which was not with her now. And as far as they knew, she never threw away any of the letters that were delivered to her. While living in New York, Margaret was seen many times talking to a man in Central Park. Witnesses say that he was a little younger. They didn't know his name because Margaret liked to keep her life private. There were really vague details, but one detail in particular was something to go off of. He drove a blue sedan, which was reported seen on the night of the fire. A letter arrived at the police station through the Morning Post. The clerk thought that it was just a normal letter and opened it. However, 2 $1,000 bonds fell out of it, and the letter read, "I am writing you this letter and sending you these bonds of Miss Brown, knowing you will take care of them before anyone else gets them. I am very remorseful. I have been drinking. I met Miss Brown in Buffalo and then again in New York at 4:15 on Monday and reached New York at 7:15 and met Miss Brown. I had 2 bottles of wine and we both drank some. I drove out to Lover's Lane, where there was a large car parked. I drove around until the car had gone, and then I pulled up there. I tried to take advantage of her, but she refused. I hit her on the head and she fell. Thinking I had killed her, I took gasoline from my car and poured it over it, lighting it, and then drove away. I drove through Bernardsville, where I threw the rest of the stuff in the river, as this was all the money she had, and I drove around and slept in the car the rest of the night. I drove to Newark the next morning, where I am hiding. I have a good car and new tires, and I am signing out, God knows where, to hell I suppose. By the time you get this letter, I shall have a good start on you. I am going to go until my money gives out, and then when I am caught, I have something with me to end it all before they can do anything." While interviewing the people who knew Margaret, they found out that Margaret was actually seeing a doctor from New York. Not many knew his name, however, one person did. Elizabeth Emily Miller. She knew his name and what he looked like. Dr. Louis Clement is supposedly the doctor she'd been seeing. He worked and lived in New York, and they met through personals in the paper. They had fallen in love and planned on getting married, and that information was held from the public, so it was not common knowledge. He had wrote a letter and explained that him and Margaret were planning on getting married, but she had changed her mind. New York officials began searching for Dr. Clement, and they searched his home first. They found out that he was actually not living there. His wife was, however. Yes, he had a wife. They'd gotten married after only 6 months of dating, and once they were married, the doctor had actually stolen a diamond brooch that was over $600. After that, she kicked him out and had not seen him since. Once she was explained the situation and why they were looking for him, she claimed that they had the wrong guy. She said he was a thief, but he was not a killer. She told them that he could be found at one of many of the hotels downtown, but they did not have much luck. They let it slip to the press what they were up to, but they were simply only going off of one person's statement. February 24th, 1928, New Jersey detectives told the press that the killer was a drug fiend. This was simply based on the info about the stolen diamond brooch, and they thought that the only reason he would steal it is to either sell it or trade it for drugs. Police began to go after every single lead they came across and that they heard of, because at this point they were desperate. They came across suspect number 2, who was a man in New Jersey. He lived near where the murder took place, and he actually committed suicide. And the only reason they suspected him was because in the letter, the killer said that he was going to kill himself before he got caught. But shortly into looking into this suspect's life, it was not him. May 1st was 8 days after the murder, and they took the suspect's name to the media. By this point, they were completely running out of leads. Info started coming in about Dr. Clement, and nothing painted him in a positive light. everything was negative. He once swindled 2 women out of thousands of dollars by promising them that he was developing a new type of fuel. However, he just took this money and ran with it. They compared this letter to other things that Dr. Clement has written, and they seemed pretty similar. On March 5th, a new letter arrived at the police station. It was addressed by Dr. Louis Clement, and he claims that he is not intentionally avoiding the police. He just doesn't have money for a lawyer. He says he doesn't have a car, and even if he did, he doesn't know how to drive anyways. And he also claims that he had not left New York since Thanksgiving Day, 1927. February 20th, he supposedly had dinner with his friends. On March 6th, a man walked into the New York City police station. He told the clerk that he wanted to speak to the person in charge. Once everyone started asking him who he was and what he was doing, he said he would not tell them anything until he spoke to the person in charge. That's when the department chief was summoned, and this man identified himself as Dr. Louis Clement, and he was brought in for interrogation immediately. He was adamant that he had nothing to do with it and he didn't know the victim. He was supposedly working in a restaurant in New York on that day, and he ended up actually working late. And finally, the distance from his work to the crime scene was just too far away, so it was not possible that he could have been at both places. Elizabeth Emily Miller was shown pictures of Dr. Clement, and she said that that was not the man that she saw Margaret with. Dr. Clement was arrested, but only because of the diamond brooch that he stole, and he claims it was not nearly as expensive as his wife said, but who knows who's telling the truth. All other leads led nowhere, and this case eventually slowly started leaving the eyes of the media until another murder happened that was almost identical to Margaret Brown's. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. I don't really care. Subscribe if you're new. Comment down below what videos you would like to see next. Let me know your opinions on what you think happened to Margaret and who you think did it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!